Hi everyone, welcome back to Lifting the Lamp. This is my next video in my series on angels and demons. What are they? I've discussed some of the early myths about angels and demons in my previous video, which I will link in the description below. This is talking now about unpacking those myths and thinking about it in terms of evolutionary biology and psychology to get a more modern understanding of what these angels and demons might be. So the stories of angels and demons that we've inherited from different cultures are very fanciful in terms of the way that they portray these beings. And they use a lot of concepts which, if taken literally, really just seem unrealistic. But is there a deeper reality to that we're just trying to explain using certain symbolic language? And if so, what do we discover when we unpack the meaning of those symbols? In my previous video, I explained how with the angelic realm or the realm of the devas in certain cultures, we see very much a realm that is concerned with the government and organization of the universe, and which reflects, broadly speaking, an aspiration by the beings inhabiting those realms towards higher values, towards virtues, towards love and compassion. Conversely, the asuras or the demons are seen as representing something that is first of all primal, which belongs to a more ignorant, darker past, and also something which is very drawn towards the physical world, drawn towards matter, drawn towards attachment to or craving for phenomena. And very interestingly, this distinction between these very specific sorts of impulses that these two different classes of beings have is reflected very closely in the way the human mind is divided up. On the one hand, we have what is sometimes described as atavistic tendencies, that is to say, those residual parts of us that we inherited from our animal past, from our animal ancestors, and our more primitive ancestors still exist in us and still exert an influence. And this tends to be concerned with the drive for survival, acting on the most basic kind of instincts that we have, whether that's to find food or to protect our territory or to find a mate. And all of the characteristics that we share with the rest of the animal kingdom. Being completely caught up in the physical world. This is where our instincts come in. This is where our most base level emotions come in. And that all matches very closely with what the beings in the demonic realm are said to be like. And then as human beings, we also have our higher aspirations, as the Kabbalists would say. We have that part of us which is capable of making value judgments between right and wrong. We have parts of us which are capable of empathizing, of thinking in the abstract and following an ideal, and also using discernment and discrimination in order to create an organizational framework with which to structure our environment, and using our greater understanding to apprehend our desires and consider them against these values that we hold before we decide whether or not to act on them. And this is very much in keeping with how the angelic realm is said to operate. So these two parts of our psyche are very much like the angel and devil on either shoulder, telling us to do different things. And there is another level to this analogy as well, because, as I've said, the more instinctual, let's say, lower level, as our society judge them, impulses or drives that we have are very much from our animal ancestors. And if you look at the depiction of demonic entities in, say, Christian artwork, medieval artwork, you have a lot of very bestial looking figures, combinations of different kinds of animals with a vaguely human figure. And even in modern times, people who say that they've had interactions with dark or demonic entities often say that they had a reptilian kind of appearance to them. And again, the reptile or the lizard is something from our evolutionary past. And there used to be a theory of mind, which has now been proven wrong, called the lizard brain. This is the idea that the human brain evolved in layers, and that the amygdala is concerned with the more reptilian type of a brain, which is only capable of defending its territory, of feeling anger, and has those very basic instinctual kind of drives, and nothing in terms of abstract thought or being capable of empathy or conscience. That was said to have occurred only when we as human beings developed the outermost layer of the brain, the cerebral cortex. Now, as I said, this view of the mind has been discounted now, but it does point to a more general idea that those earlier forms of life, with which we shared common ancestors, which were much closer to those forms of life than what we are now, were characterized by only being capable of certain kinds of behavior, such as aggression, territorialism, basic instincts to reproduce, basic instincts to find food, and all of the things that make human beings great today in terms of our ability for higher logic, our ability to form morals and values, and show empathy to other people and understand other people and their suffering, was said to have evolved later. It seems to be a more recent evolutionary phenomenon. But all of these depictions of demons came at a time before we understood the theory of evolution. Perhaps there was some intuited, very unconsciously embedded recognition of our animal ancestors and what kind of qualities within us those ancestors represented. And that led to a value judgment when we recognized those parts of us, that they were bad rather than good, based on the social upbringing of those civilizations. And I also think that it's very interesting that, again, in a modern context, you have stories of people meeting aliens and advanced beings from another planet who seem to represent the future of the human race, technologically, in terms of being capable of space travel and all of this sort of thing. And there are also very marked similarities between those encounters with extraterrestrial beings that are trying to help us and the old legends of angels and devas. So it's almost as though those devas and those angels represent not only the best of us now, but what we will look like in the future as we continue to develop those better parts of us, those more recent parts of us, evolutionarily speaking. Now, I've spoken a lot about human psychology and the human mind here. Does that then mean that the proper understanding of angels and demons is to see them as just parts of our psyche and nothing more than that? Should we be viewing them in that way instead of as external entities? That's something I'll tackle in another video on this topic, where I talk about the two contemporary schools of thought in Western esotericism to do with angels and demons, one being that they are purely psychological in nature and all in our head, and the other school being that no, these things are external entities that exist just as the ancient myths say they do. So I'll explore that in my next video. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe if you're enjoying these videos. Leave your comments down below if you have any. If you have any video suggestions, leave those down below as well. See you next time.